Murder.
Chalk outlines.
DNA tests.
Blood.
Anonymous tip.
Beheadings and disembowelments.
Fingerprints.
The yellow tape that they have on crime scenes.
Witness statements.
Stakeouts with my cop friend and we drink coffee. UV lights that they can see on. 5 minutes.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of True Crime in about 5 minutes. I've got the timer. Belle, you're going to give us the true crime story.
Content warning for today. This one does discuss discussion of suicide and also animal captivity and death, and I wanted to flag that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Feeling really good about this one. Should be great.
Today we're going to talk about a crime gang circa 1935 in Sydney, Australia, and a hero shark.
Okay.
Personally, my favourite hero of all time.
I used to watch Street Sharks growing up.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
What the hell? Okay.
It's a show about sharks that fight crime on the streets.
This is, you know what? This is very similar to that in real life.
That's why I mentioned it.
So 1935 in Sydney, there is an aquarium on the beach, Coogee Beach. They had an aquarium there. They were struggling and...
Isn't it Coogee?
No, I thought it was Coogee. Was it Coogee?
Coogee.
I have been there, but I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Coogee.
I'll switch between the
I
two.
think people in
everyone's
Sydney
happy.
would be like, we said Coogee.
Coogee? Well, yes, there was an
It's
aquarium
the Coogee
there.
Pap.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, 1935, they were struggling a little bit. They needed some more attractions to put into this aquarium.
Yeah, I feel like aquariums wouldn't have been that big in the 1930s.
No, especially it was like during the Depression still, and people, they just needed to drum up some business.
Like eating the fish to try and survive.
So the owner went out with his son and went fishing, literally.
Oh, right.
And actually ended up catching a huge shark which they kept alive. They brought it back to the aquarium. They put it in the aquarium, and of course, people came from everywhere to come and see this ginormous shark. Now, in front of a crowd, one day, this shark is swimming in this big tank, and it started vomiting underwater, which they do. It spat out a rat, it spat out some other stuff, and then it spat out a human arm.
Whoa.
Oh, my God. Could you imagine if you saw that? I mean, talk about drumming up business.
Absolutely. So it got everyone talking. They put the arm out on the news. It had a tattoo on it. So they were able to identify pretty much straight away whose arm it was. It was a young man by the name of Jimmy Smith. Now, Jimmy Smith was a lovely young guy, but he was involved in a little bit of crime on the side. He was a part of this gang that would have like speedboats in Sydney and deliver drugs. They also forged some checks and just did a few, white collar crimes.
Dodgy stuff.
And so it was him, this guy called Reginald, and a guy called Patrick, the three of them. Now, the backstory is he was actually, with these three, got into a little bit of a fight. They started disagreeing. They started all turning against each other, which did end up with Patrick killing Jimmy. He killed him. He put his body in a suitcase, but did keep his arm. He kept his arm, gave it to Reginald, the other guy in the gang, and said, look, I've killed him and I'm going to frame you for it. Reginald's like, oh my gosh, please, no. He tries to...
Why would he tell him that he's framing him?
Because they were all fighting. They were all going
okay.
against each other. So Reginald was like, nah, I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to prison. The police basically put two and two together. They found that these three had been working together, started chasing them, and Reginald went out on one of his speedboats and tried to shoot himself. He shot himself in the head.
Oh.
He fell into the water, didn't die, got back into his boat and started driving the boat while he had a hole in his head.
Oh, my God.
And got on like a big speed chase with the police chasing him for 4 hours. He had a hole in his head and was driving this boat around, also drunk because, the 30s. Then got back into Sydney. They had Patrick, the other guy. They're like, right, well, you've clearly killed Jimmy. Now we've got Reginald. We got you together. Reginald did get out. He was in his car and he did end up shooting himself in the chest 3 times. So he was dead. Patrick, on the other hand, went to court and said, well, yeah, you found the arm in this shark, but you don't have a body, so therefore it's not murder. And he never got done for murder because in those days, they didn't have a body. They just had the arm out of this shark. And so he never actually got done for it, which is wild. And he just went on about his business, was totally fine. But it did come about that, and a part of this story that I find really interesting as well is, so I said they put his body in this suitcase.
Yeah.
In the 30s, the 20s and 30s, it was actually a very popular thing to do where crime gangs would put people's bodies in cases and chuck them into the harbour. And it was called the Sydney Send-Off.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Which I find really like, that was just a thing that everyone was like, oh, yeah, no, the Sydney Send-Off. Yeah,
Sydney
you just put some
Send-Off.
bodies in the water. Yeah.
Wow.
That was just a thing that happened. But yeah, so they had the arm and they were able to identify it. And
Pretty good. And that was
Nailed.
feels like a buzzer beater.
Nailed,
You finished
nailed
that
it.
as it was
Yeah,
going
I
on.
don't think there was any more to add. I was like, yeah, you.
they did kill the shark after he spat the arm out so they could
To check it for the rest
yeah,
of the body? I
very
thought they
sad.
might have.
That's
Sad,
the
isn't
saddest
it?
part. Because at the
Yep.
end of the day, I think the shark was the hero in this.
All right, well, we'll catch you in the next one.